Welcome to another Math and Man episode where today you'll be learning how to factor trinomials into two binomials. That sounded crazy. Basically, you're turning one of these bad boys into two parentheses, one of these. So what do you have to know to do that? One, you have to really be good with your multiplication and addition of positive and negative numbers. So that means you know that two negative numbers multiplied together is positive. You also know that two negatives only equal a positive when you're multiplying and dividing, not when you're combining them. So that's something that my students always mix up. So that's one example right here. And last, a positive number times a negative number equals a negative number. Number two, how to factor out greatest common factors. And why are you even doing this? It's mainly later for solving quadratics, simplifying, and graphing. Alright, let's start with these two problems right here. I'm going to show you two ways on how to do this. You have to know that a quadratic form is in this format, where a is a number next to whatever it is squared, b is a number next to the variable by itself, and c is just a constant, meaning it's just a number. So over here, a would equal 1. If there's no number there, it's a 1. b is negative 7, and c is negative 18. We're going to make this graphic organizer, and here's how it works. These two lines are going to represent the same number. So you want to come up with two numbers that multiply to the result of a times c. 1 times negative 18, which is negative 18. And the same two numbers that add up to b, negative 7. So go sit there and think, if this is a negative number and you're multiplying two numbers to get a negative result, then you know that one of them has to be negative. Then here's the other thing I want you to look at. So when you look at these type of problems, you want to look at these two and really have a game plan and strategy for yourself. If you know that one of these are negative and this is negative, you know that the bigger number has to be negative. So what are numbers that multiply to 18? Well, let's just say 9 and 2. If we choose 9 and 2, I know that 9 has to be the negative one because this is negative, and then 9 has to be bigger than the 2 in order for this to be negative. Once you have those two numbers, then you could just put them in those two binomials in parentheses. You're going to put two x's right here, and then the two numbers that you found right there, and a positive 2. That is it. That is done. It looks confusing, but if you don't like this graphic organizer, let's try this X method. So it kind of works the same way. You want to find two numbers that multiply to AC. This doesn't have a number, it's a 1. So your A is 1, C is 8, 1 times 8 is 8. And the same two numbers that add up to B. Well, my B is negative 9. Have a strategy, have a game plan. If you're looking at two numbers that the result is a positive, but when you add them, it becomes negative, then hopefully you know that both of these numbers have to be negative. And then sit there and think, what are things that multiply to 8? Things that multiply to 8 but add up to negative 9 would be negative 8 and 1. Once you have those two numbers, set up your two binomial parentheses. You're dealing with m's this time. And then just plop these two numbers right in. Minus 8 and minus 1. Sometimes you'll get a scenario where this number right here is no longer 1. And the problems just get more difficult from there. But sometimes they are just a hidden problem. A hidden easy problem is what I would like to say it. If you notice that 8, 24, and 80 all have a greatest common factor, which is 8, then you can start off by pulling out that 8. If I divide all these by 8, then I can write that 8 on the outside, and you can write the results of whatever's left over in the inside. So 8 divided by 8 is 1x squared. 24 divided by 8 is 3x. And negative 80 divided by 8 is negative 10. My students love to use this graphic organizer, this X method. So we'll just go with that. You're trying to find the two numbers that multiply to A and C. So that's my A, that's my B, and that's my C. A times C is negative 10, and my B is 3. So look at negative 10. you know that if it's two numbers that multiply to a negative, then one of them already has to be negative, one has to be positive, and since this is a positive 3, you know the positive one's got to be bigger. So what are those two numbers? 2 and 5. Hopefully you got that. Once you have these two numbers, those are the numbers that go into these parentheses. Don't forget that 8 that we factored will be out here still, and then we're using the x variables, and now all you have to do is put in these two numbers that you found, -2 and +5. Alright, I want you to try out these two problems on your own, so just pause the video. When you are done, just unpause the video and you can check your answers. This is the answer for the first one using the box method, and this is the second answer using the other graphic organizer. The only one I want to bring out is just to remember, always check the coefficients or the numbers in the front to see if you could fish out a greatest common factor. And for this one, you could have taken out a 3 to begin with, and that is where this 3 is coming from. If you do that, it makes the problem a lot easier. You're left with v squared minus 9v minus 10, and this is where I got these numbers from. That's the setup. Hopefully that made sense. If it did, throw me a like, subscribe to my channel. I'll make as many math lessons as I can. I'm thinking now you know how to factor, so I will see you on the next episode. Peace!